the government of Lebanon has requested, and I have approved, the deployment of United States forces to Beirut as part of a multinational force. In no case will our troops stay longer than 30 days.
If they're shot at, will they be withdrawn, sir, immediately? What? If they're shot at, will they be withdrawn immediately?
Yes.
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 Ahoy there, Wandering Curator here. For this video, I interviewed two individuals who were present during the US-led PLO evacuation of Beirut in 1982. One account you will hear, the other one I will read from. Thank you very much for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thank you.
When we landed, here's the funny part. This is Marine Corps logic back then. They wanted us to go in with press camis and spit shine boots and looked all pretty and all that crap, right? So this is what they want us to do. So they want us to go ahead and do this. So they flew us over to, I think it was the Nashville back then, which was an LPH. So what they did was, when we're going to go in, we have to get in a landing craft. But they don't do it like World War II days, where you go over the side and ropes. What you do is they fill up the inside of the ship where the landing craft is, so they float. Then they back them off the back of the ship. Then you go down some stairs down into this water that's about chest high deep. Now, mind you, you have press camis and spit shine boots, and you're going into chest deep water. So now you got to walk off the end of, you got to walk through the ship, which is flooded, and you go down to the end of the ship, which is like a ramp, and the ramp to the LSTs are laying on the ramp to the ship. Now, it's just not perfectly laying there. It's going up and down because of, the sea swells. And so you have to run on this landing craft without getting crushed between the two friggin' ramps in chest deep water. Then we go in to go and land at the port. We're going in to land, and it's all secret, blah, blah, blah. Well, we get there, there's got to be a couple hundred, if not more, reporters all lined up where we're supposed to be landing. And they knew we were coming. So it wasn't no damn big secret. So we ended up getting in there, and everybody got in the little areas that we had to be in. And actually, we were in a warehouse, and the next warehouse over, had 2 Israeli tanks and 2 BMPs. Or APCs, excuse me, APCs. That's how close the Israelis were to us. So, yeah, so they were sitting there, and they didn't do anything at that time.
The Marine Amphibious Task Force, earmarked as the American unit to help in the evacuation of the PLO from Beirut, sailed from Naples, Italy this morning. It could be off the coast of Lebanon by Thursday night, where it will join the aircraft carrier USS Independence. Pentagon sources say the Marines have been ready for weeks, but negotiators in Beirut asked the military not to send the troops until most negotiating snags had been removed. Some 800 Marines are slated to go ashore in Beirut to secure that portion of the city for which the U.S. will be responsible. That will leave 1,000 Leathernecks on board ship as a backup. If there's trouble, another 1,600 Marines now at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, are to move in quickly. No American troops are to stay longer than 30 days. Government sources say there are stringent rules for American participation. For example, if fighting breaks out while the Marines are in Beirut, they will be withdrawn immediately. The U.S. will use what force is deemed necessary to get them out safely. Another condition, if the PLO does not fully cooperate with evacuation plans, again, U.S. troops will be pulled out immediately. And finally, the Marines will not provide food, water, or medical help to the people of Beirut. Sources say the soldiers are there to keep the peace, not to provide humanitarian relief. John McWethy, ABC News, the Pentagon.
I remember the 6x6 transport trucks loaded with combatants firing their weapons in the air as they approached our checkpoint. The Lebanese army line of soldiers parted so they could roll up to our Marine line so we could stop them and search them for heavy or American-made weapons. If found, they were confiscated. After the search, we let them pass escorted to the loading dock. The PLO wounded came the day before. A fair amount looked like kids and teenagers. A lot were on crutches, missing legs or arms, or had bandaged, bloodied heads. I remember thinking how sad it was that these kids had been allowed to fight. One day during the evacuation, about 10 armed unknowns walked past the Lebanese line, and when confronted, we got in a push and shove match with them as they tried to push past and get through. I remember thinking, well, here we go, and I was listening for the first round to go off to start our first firefight. But shortly, I guess they realized they weren't getting through and made a hasty retreat back down the street where they came.
So then we had to take turns where they were going to bring them in through the checkpoint, whatever you want to call it. What they did is they made them disarm prior to them coming through the checkpoint. But a few of them still had some weapons on them, like one of the idiots on one of the trucks decided it'd be funny to throw a couple grenades at the Marines. But the pins were still in them, but they still threw the grenades. You see a grenade landing at your feet, you're in a shitty situation like that, your heart goes right up in your throat real quick. Yeah, they were live. They had the pins in, so the pins weren't pulled. Not realizing that up on the roofs of this checkpoint were the machine gunners for the Marines, that if they opened up, they would have decimated those people. That's what I'm saying about being stupid.
When Arafat came, he arrived in a convoy of 3 Mercedes sedans. Arafat was in the middle one, and he was in the back seat with men laying on top of him to protect him. After a quick search, we opened the line and they sped through, and that was the end of the evacuation. I heard later that 2 different Israeli snipers had him lined up as he walked up the gangplank to board the ship, but were told to stand down. One night, a couple of Israeli soldiers dropped by the building we were staying in with bottles of Johnny Walker Red and black whiskey. We all sat and had a few with these men. One of the Israeli soldiers questioned us and asked, weren't we supposed to be their allies? They didn't understand how we could be helping their enemies to escape when they had finally cornered them and were going to finish them off. The Israelis were annoyed that the Americans had helped evacuate the PLO, and they said now the PLO will get away and come back and kill more Israelis. Of course, in the end, we were just following orders.
And the last boat that left there, that was the boat that Arafat got on. And I was probably, he's a short shed. He's like 5'2", maybe. Yeah. He was probably 5 feet from, well, probably even closer than that, probably 3 feet. I probably could have reached out and smacked him upside the head. That's how close he was. And I was just looking at him going, look how, I just was amazed at how short he was. I never realized how short he was. Yeah, that was those guys that were in that other warehouse I told you about. When he left, they fired up the tanks, and there was a concrete dock that they drove the 2 tanks down to the end of the dock. And they were going to shoot up his boat because they didn't want him to leave.
Yeah.
And we told them, they said, that's not a good idea because it's under our protection. And they said, well, we have orders. We have to blah, 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 blah. Okay, no problem. Well, what they did was they drove 2 Jeep tows. Okay, we had a Jeep mounted tows, and they drove 2 of those behind the tanks. And they said, if you fire in that ship, we have no choice but to take you out. And so I'm sure that they probably called their headquarters and said, look, the Marines are going to shoot us in the ass if we shoot at this boat. What the hell should we do? And so they never did shoot. And they once the boat cleared the harbor and was gone out to sea, then the tow jeeps took off and stuff. They didn't stay behind the Israelis. But yeah, they're ready to shoot at them.
Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll be back with more. Thank you.